This episode is brought to you by Buffalo Trace Distillery. Powerful yet smooth. Contained but never tame. Proudly going their own way, but never going alone. This is the spirit inside Buffalo Trace Bourbon. Made at Buffalo Trace Distillery, the world's most award-winning distillery. Buffalo Trace is always perfectly untamed. Distilled, aged, and bottled by Buffalo Trace Distillery, Franklin County, Kentucky. 90 proof, 45% alcohol by volume. Learn more at buffalotracedistillery.com. Please drink responsibly.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
The Conjuring: Last Rites. On September 5th.
Come down here! I need your help!
The Conjuring: Last Rites. Only in theaters September 5th. Rated R.
This episode is brought to you by Wayfair. Podcasts follow us everywhere. Whether you're cooking in the kitchen, chilling in the living room, or pretending to fold laundry in the bedroom. And with Wayfair, every one of those rooms can tell a story of its own. Their curated collections of furniture styles and prices make Wayfair the trusted destination to turn your home into your happy place. Shop everything home at wayfair.com with free and easy delivery straight to your door.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
All right, we are live here, Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitter. We got a lot to jump into. My name is Garrett Chapman. Welcome into the Falcons Podcast with me. And I'm really excited to, of course, hop in with you and all the great folks over at Falcons on SI, bringing some awesome content to you. Give me a follow at GChapATL on Twitter. Stay fully up to date on everything that we have going on. But we've got a big show for you today. We're going to dig into the options that the Falcons have right now based off of the, they have a lot of options, but we're going to get into potentially some of the better of those options at the right tackle position, just in the wake of all the stuff going on with Kaleb McGary and Storm Norton. I'll also take your questions, so drop those in the comments. I will get to as many as I can throughout the show. But while you're at it, make sure you like the video. Make sure to share it with your friends. Make sure to subscribe, especially if you're over there on YouTube. Helps us keep the lights on and help us continue to bring great content to you as best we can. But then we're also going to do some good news. It's not all bad news. We got football starting off in 1 week. 1 week from today, we're going to have NFL football back on our screens. And I know it's very exciting. The Falcons fans, we're all going to have to wait just a little bit longer, but it'll be here before we know it. I mean, it's what, nine days or something like that, 10 days. We'll be here really in a blink of an eye. But ultimately, we're going to dig right into this right tackle position. But I see some folks starting to jump in. Welcome. Some comments coming in here already. I see Rusty, you've said some things, man. He says they were going to come out and said they were still having a conversation about moving Bergeron to right tackle is worrisome. That means, here, I'll put it up on the screen for you. That means they're nervous about Wilkinson point blank. Yeah, well, you know what, Rusty, let's start right there, because that is a little bit of a concern here for me, because like we know, of course, at this point, unless you've been living under a rock, Kaleb McGary got hurt last week. Storm Norton also had an ankle surgery. And this is a massive point of worry for the team. And it's not just the fact that it's your starting right tackle. It's the fact that I dug into some of these numbers here. And it's the fact that in 2024, the Atlanta Falcons were second in the NFL in outside rushes. 67% of their tackles came on the outside. They're an outside zone blocking scheme, so they're going to run outside the tackles. And their overall success rate was 47.5%. Both of those numbers were second in the NFL, and they averaged something in the range of 4.5 yards per carry, specifically to the right side. Raheem Morris talked about it today. They leaned on that right tackle position a lot. And of course, it's not just him. It's the presence of, the best right guard in the NFL, but they lean on that. And with them running to the outside as much as they do, it's going to be felt. And it's not something that's necessarily going to show up on the stat sheet in the same way that a sack or something like that would. Speaking of which, it's also Michael Penix's blind side. And it's not a great situation that this team finds themselves in. And I think they recognize it just like anybody else. So they're throwing bodies at it as much as they can. 6 different players right now. 6 different players between Elijah Wilkinson, Jack Nelson, Michael Jarrell, Carter Warren, Ryan Hayes, and even Matthew Bergeron. They're just trying to kind of take the Ronald Acuna approach that Alex Anthopoulos did back in, 2021 when they go and win a World Series. Just throw as many bodies as possible at the right field spot. Maybe something will click, but at the same time, Kaleb McGary has had 92 starts in his career. 92 starts. That's not nothing. And these 6 players at tackle, specifically at tackle, all combined for 64 career starts. It's a big loss. And it's something that they're going to feel the entire season. It's going to be felt all season long, but it's especially going to be felt in this early part of the season while Storm Norton rehabs from the first few weeks. It's already going to be a difficult stretch, right? Like you're facing off against the likes of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You've got the Minnesota Vikings. You've got the Carolina Panthers. You've got the Buffalo Bills. This is going to be very difficult for them, And if you go even further than that, if like say Storm Norton doesn't come back at the bye week, then all of a sudden you're looking at, the San Francisco 49ers. That's another big pass rush heavy team, and they're going to feel it. They're going to feel it on that side, and especially for a team that, they have expectations of reaching the postseason. It's going to be tough, and like when you have the Washington Commanders, who that's a team you're going to have to score a bunch of points with in order to keep up with, so the defense is going to have to pick up the pace. You're going to have to lean on these other guys in the offensive line and step up in a big way. But as far as what your options are right now, you got a lot of options. I don't know how many of them are particularly good options necessarily. Elijah Wilkinson, he is the starter. I think he basically, he's carrying himself like the starter. He was the guy who stepped in immediately and started picking up the mantle and played at the right tackle spot. But, I think it's pretty telling that you're trying to add as many bodies as you possibly can, because you need to be strong at that spot if you want to contend for the NFC South. Jack Nelson was a guy that you drafted as a developmental piece. He's somebody who I didn't think was actually going to make the roster. He's been up and down. He's been okay at times. He showed improvement as the summer went along. I don't want to be all negative about it, but I don't think he's ready for a job here yet. He wasn't at practice today. I don't know why that was. We didn't have a chance to ask about that. I'm sure it'll come up next week, but I just don't think he's ready. I don't think he's ready to take meaningful snaps here. And maybe at the very least, he can come in and be a mauler at right tackle, like maybe just come in and be to a lesser extent what Kaleb McGary was and just be really strong and run blocking. But I don't think he's ready as a pass blocker. And you saw it in preseason action for those who are like me, who were looking at it quite closely. A lot of penalties. He gave up some bad sacks. He got beat often in pass protection. He just wasn't in a spot that you need him to be at before you feel comfortable, putting him out there with the starters. And I'm a little worried about that. And the Falcons see that. They go trade a conditional 2027 7th for Michael Jarrell. We had a chance to talk to him today. And he's only played 245 snaps, but when he did, it wasn't great. He's at best kind of a middling guard or option there at the tackle position. PFF put as much value in that as you want to, but he's got a 54 grade in run blocking, a 49 grade in pass blocking. That's 95th and 123rd out of 140 tackles. At the very best, he's a stopgap player, but he's big. He's big. We did have a chance to talk to him, like I said, and he's somebody who, he carries himself well. He's somebody who I find easy to root for. But we'll see. He's got 2 weeks to learn a roster and to learn a playbook. It's going to be very difficult to imagine that he's going to have enough time to really get himself into a position where he can start, So I do think that Elijah Wilkinson is going to be the guy at that position. But you also go add some practice squad bodies to pair with Brandon Parker, who's another guy who was, not awesome during preseason. But clearly he showed you a little bit more than Jack Nelson did because he's a practice squad guy and Jack Nelson isn't. But Carter Warren, Ryan Hayes, those are two guys who, Hayes himself was a 7th round pick. At best, they're competition. Both of them got drafted in 2023. Neither of them have shown that they can stick around with their own teams. Carter Warren, at least, was enough to kind of generate a little bit of buzz in terms of trade prospects before he got waived by the Jets. But I just don't know how much real gusto you're going to get at that position. So to bring this all back, kind of what the original comment was from Rusty, it's the fact that Matthew Bergeron is more of a realistic option at the right tackle spot than I previously thought. You know, he did play right tackle, or he played left tackle actually when he was in college at Syracuse. And that was the reason he got drafted as a second round pick. You know, he started 39 games at tackle and he was an all ACC player at the position. But it's more the fact that, and we asked Raheem Morris about this earlier today, it's the fact that when he joined the Falcons in 2023, they were like, no, you're going to be our starting left guard. And since then, he's started all 34 games for them at left guard, and he's been very good. You know, but they did say it's like our job is to find the 5 best players who work together really effectively and can come out there and do the job as best that they can. But if you put Matthew Bergeron out there, I think that also creates another hole at the left guard spot, and you're getting somebody out there on the right side who may not be in a perfect situation there. I mean, I don't think there is a perfect situation, but I have a hard time believing that your best position or your best spot that you can put yourself in is by what you cut off your nose to spite your face. I mean, like, I don't know if I'm fully using that expression correctly here, but that's kind of what you're doing. You're really hampering yourself on both sides of the line of scrimmage at that point. Now, I think that if Bergeron is your best option there, I think you have better options at left guard than you do at right tackle. Elijah Wilkinson was somebody who played left guard for this team back in 2022, albeit not at a really high level, but he's a combo guy. He's a depth guy. You know, he's somebody who, there's a reason he's still on the roster and he's bounced around a little bit, but he can give you a little bit of both positions right there. But Kyle Hinton's somebody who I'd say was at least adequate at the guard position during preseason and just during camp in general. But neither of them are going to give you what Matthew Bergeron does at that left guard spot. So I don't think there really is a perfect situation, but your best case scenario is that Storm Norton's back by week 5 or week 6. You know, and if he can get back, he can come in during the bye week. They could designate him to return, and hopefully that's the best case scenario right there. But you still cannot afford to drop any games. You have to start at the very least 1-3 before the bye week, at the very least. And I put out my preseason predictions for what the season is going to be. I have the team inevitably going 10-7, but they start 3-1. I actually have them getting out to a pretty hot start because I think they win week 1 because you're playing a team who is at least as injured as you are in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then you go to another opponent with the Minnesota Vikings, who I'm very worried about that game just in general, just because of the types of defense, the defensive blitzes that you're going to see in that game. And it's Carolina Panthers, and then it's the Washington Commanders, who I think they shined very bright last year, but I just have a hard time believing they're going to win as many one-score games this year as they did last year. So, but if you turn around and win 3-1, I think you're in fantastic shape. If you're 1-3, that's a completely different note for a team who wants to go out and win an NFC South title. And I think at the end of the day, though, the thing that does give me some confidence in this team, it's not about the fact that they feel so nervous this early in the season. It's the fact that Dwayne Ledford is there. And we had a conversation with him, and he's one of the more well-respected offensive line coaches in the NFL. And I do think that he is going to get this team in a decent enough spot where at least you can figure some things out, you know, and you're not going to be able to necessarily deploy your entire offense. I think you're going to have at least a guy out there at the tight end position chipping as much as you can. But I think you almost benefit from the fact that you have Tampa Bay is not a great rush team necessarily. They're a fancy blitz team. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing that you're going to have to contend with. But maybe you can get by on the fact that the Commanders aren't a great rush team, not an awesome team. They go out and add Von Miller and everything like that, but they're not an awesome rush team. Panthers are not a rush team. Maybe you can skate by that fact. So we'll see. Obviously this is still a very much an evolving situation. Dwayne Ledford's a great coach, and I do have a lot of confidence in him. And I think Zach Robinson is going to have to be creative. He's going to have to scheme, and he's going to have to figure some things out. I don't think there's a perfect option, but hell, that's what happens when you lose your starting right tackle and your swing tackle in the same day. ish happens, right? I don't think I'm allowed to cuss on this podcast, but bad things happen, and they happen to every team in the NFL, and it's just the Falcons. It's happening very early, and we're gonna have a little bit of time between now and week 1, but the onus is on them to figure some things out. All right. We got a lot of people jumping into the stream here. We got folks over there on YouTube. I see some people are over there on Twitter. A couple more are over there on Facebook. Welcome. Make sure to, if you're on Twitter, hit me with a like, hit me with a retweet. If you're over on Facebook, hit me with a like there too. I really appreciate all of the good people over there. And then on YouTube, if you are here, hopefully hit that subscribe button. Make sure to jump in and follow along. I mean, we do these podcasts basically 4 days a week. So the more time that you want to spend with us and talk a little bit of Atlanta Falcons, we'd love to do so. And reminder, I will be taking your questions. So if you have questions, you want to drop them in there, make sure to drop them into the comments, and I will get to as many as I can. But make sure to give me a follow at GChapATL. That's the best way to get in touch with me. I'm going to start scrolling through some of these. I know we've got almost 100 people across all of our platforms right now. We got a lot of people. Xavier Littman, what's up, man? How you doing? Mactown Dirty, I see you, brother. Welcome in. Happy Hudson says, I think Morris hinted that they would be a shotgun and pistol more to minimize the blindside factor. That's not new, Happy Hudson, over there on YouTube. He's been saying that for most of the summer, but he did mention that today. He a little bit backtracked today, just on the importance of the blind side. I mean, we'll see inevitably what they end up doing, but he being Michael Penix, he is somebody who operates out of the pocket. Maybe not quite to the extent that Kirk Cousins does, but he's a little robotic in the pocket. And, that was one of his draft day shortcomings, I guess you could say, is that he is a little robotic, but he's got a little bit more play action ability. They're going to be able to roll him out a little bit. I think that you have more options at your disposal, especially with play action and things like that. With Michael Penix, and I think that they're going to deploy all of that. Anything that's in the repertoire, they're going to try and take advantage of to take some pressure off of that right tackle spot. Michael Ronquillo, he says, Dallas Cowboys traded Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers for 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark. Yes, if anybody missed it, that this is the big breaking news of the day. We can get into it a little bit later on if you'd like to. But the power dynamic in the NFC has absolutely shifted. It's gone from Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys. At least, the Dallas Cowboys have a bona fide beast in the middle of their field who can move around and do a lot of crazy stuff, to them not really being a whole lot of much. That defense is terrible outside of Micah Parsons. It's just not in really good shape. And I think the rest of the world, is me included, is kind of laughing there at Jerry Jones. 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark. That's what it cost. Good Lord. And I mean, look, if the Falcons hadn't traded their future first for James Pierce, which again, I'll freely admit, I'm very happy about that. I think the progress that you've seen from James Pierce on the field is beyond evident. But if I knew that you were going to be able to get 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark level player for Micah Parsons, I would have changed my tune very quickly. Yeah, but Michael mentions here just a second later, he signs that 4-year contract, $47 million. $47 million is a lot for a quarterback. $47 million for a defensive player is a lot. $47 million, I believe, for any defensive player. I think he's making somewhere in the range of like $8-9 million more than the next highest paid player at his position. So that's big money. But look, he deserves it. He's potentially the best defensive player in the NFL. I think there's a very small list of, if there are players who are better than Micah Parsons is, then I think that's a very, very small list. Happy Hudson continues. He says, I was excited for more under center play action or RPO options. It's still on the table. I mean, not everything is off the table at this point. I mean, we don't know what it's going to look like. I'm not super confident in Elijah Wilkinson. I'm not in a spot where, I'm not in those meetings. I don't know what their specific play calls are going to be on any given week. And I think it's going to vary based off of your opponent, but ultimately you kind of go through this and it is a little worrisome. It definitely is a little worrisome. All right. I'm going to keep coming back to your comments here in a little bit, and we will open the floor to a lot more questions just as long as yeah, I mean, just as time allows, and we'll jump into all of that. But I do want to get into some of the other notes and things that I did see at practice today. I was up there at Flowery Branch. It was the first time that we were actually allowed up at Flowery Branch since really Kaleb McGary got hurt. And so it's been a little while. And we did get some good news. You know, it wasn't all bad news. The great news is that there's no red shirt for some rookies this year. Not much of a surprise, but ultimately, we will see Billy Bowman and we will see Xavier Watts week 1, and they will be your starters. On defense, I know a lot of people were very worried about D. Alford potentially rolling out there and being a starting nickelback. And Jordan Fuller, I mean, it was a very surprising cut. And I think just by virtue of him being cut, basically the writing was on the wall that Xavier Watts was going to come in and be your starter. But I think Billy Bowman and Xavier had both really played their way into that role. They had taken the vast majority of snaps with the ones. I think that's just kind of the way that they really wanted this to be. And Billy's been likened to a Cobra. I mean, like you look at like the way he plays the game and the kind of the attitude that he attacks the position with, he fits it so well. And I think based off of just the way he projects to the next level, he fits that position perfectly. And he's played well, you know, and Xavier, he and Bowman, the comments that I've heard pretty much universally, like across the board, whenever you ask anybody about these two, it's the fact that it's not that they don't have bad plays. It's that they don't have bad days, if that makes sense. I say this to my fiance all the time. I say, you don't have bad days, you have bad moments, right? The perfect example is football. That's life in general. You have bad moments in a game. You have a bad play. Maybe you let something up. Maybe you misread a block. Maybe you give up a big reception. It doesn't matter. It could be anything. Or maybe you, on the inverse, you have a really good play. They don't let that get them too high, and they don't let them get them too low. And they don't have bad days, and then they don't stack bad days. Instead, they stack good days. And that's really the biggest thing about these two. And it's that level of maturity is not common, right? And you talk about the ethos and the types of like personality of players that Terry Fontenot really wanted to target and to add onto this team. And these two kind of fit it perfectly. And the more you talk to them, the more you hear other people talk about them. It's very evident that they're very well regarded in that locker room. And they have maturity that's not common among younger players, you know, and I think that ultimately we'll see what they actually do on the field on Sundays. But I think based off of what we've seen from them on up at Flowery Branch and then during preseason games, the potential is really much there. And it's right there in front of them. And I think ultimately this scheme kind of fits what they want to do, where they can kind of come out and play free, you know, and be on that backside and just come in there and make plays. And both of these guys have that ball hawking type of ability. Bowman had, Xavier Watts, I think, had 13 interceptions. Bowman had a bunch more. He had some defensive touchdowns as well. You know, I mean, like, these are guys who can come in and do a lot of big things. And I'm excited for what they look like, you know, and this was a secondary that needed a real shot in the arm in that way. But I think they're going to provide that. So that was wonderful news. And especially based off of what we saw last year, where, I mean, you didn't see you didn't see these guys. The rookies didn't play like hardly at all, you know, and you look at guys like Rook, you look at guys like Brandon Dorless, stuff like that. And there was a little concern. Bralen Trice, of course, he was injured, so it was a little bit different for him. But, you know, it's exciting to see rookies kind of step in and have big roles. It just means, especially when you see overtaking veterans that quickly, guys who had been on this roster, or at least been familiar with this scheme. And I think ultimately it's a great situation. The other big thing from the day is the fact that Darnell Mooney was seen back out at practice. Ray McLeod was also out there as well, but Darnell Mooney, Ray had been dealing with some things, some nagging sort of little things, and it was never fully clear what exactly those issues were. We never got an answer on it, but he was seen at practice today. Darnell Mooney, he was also out at practice today. He hasn't taken a single snap at all. He hasn't taken any snaps going back to the first day of training camp, beginning of July. I think it was July 23rd. It was the last time that we actually saw him. And he was only out for just a few plays, just in general. And I mean, it's a good sign. It's a good sign to see him back. And especially because you look at how thin this wide receiver position is. Top to bottom, it is not very deep. There's a reason you're carrying, we talked about it with the right tackle position. You have 7 guys who are designated as wide receivers. Really, it's 5, but because you have Cordero Hodge and Jamal Agnew I mean, those are special teamers. Those are guys who are going to be not necessarily be in that role of, taking wide receiver snaps. But these other 5, it depends on what you want to get out of them. So you need this group to stay healthy. You need Darnell Mooney. You need Drake London specifically. Those 2 guys you're going to be leaning on them a great deal to really carry the water for this unit. And then if any of them go down, there's a little bit of concern. Casey Washington's had a good summer. David Stills has also had a great summer. They earned their spot on this roster, don't get me wrong, but the talent is up at the very top. And generally speaking, when you see a team not add a whole lot of new, fresh faces to an offense or a defense, any one unit in particular, generally it opens the door to some potential problems that you didn't expect. I think there's always this fallacy that exists in the NFL that you expect your team to be as good or better as the team that you saw last year. And I think that's kind of the situation that the Falcons find themselves in, especially on offense. And they didn't add anything really to the offense. I mean, Jack Nelson was the only real offensive addition that you made outside of maybe some other smaller bodies, like role players, like little guys maybe not little guys, not the right word to say, excuse me. It's some other guys who were kind of like to fill out the rest of the roster. But I mean, we'll see what actually ends up happening with them. I think this offense can be really good. I think the big new face is the quarterback. But Darnell Mooney being back at practice. I don't want this. Let's bring it on back. It's the fact that Darnell Mooney was back at practice today. That is the important thing. He needs to be healthy for this team. He needs to be a contributor. If this offense wants to be as good as even I expect it to be here this coming season. But then that also gets us into some other not quite so great news. It's Bralen Trice again, and he just cannot stay healthy. It's had some recurring injury issues with his knee. That's the quote that Raheem Morris had. He was put back on IR. He has a designation to return. So for anybody who's out there just curious about rule designations in the NFL, you have 8 of them. Falcons have now used 3 of those 8. They have 5 left. Bralen Trice was in the rotation all summer long. He missed the first week of preseason, but then he played in the next 2 preseason games. We'll see what ends up happening with this. It doesn't feel like he's going to be a real heavy part of the rotation this year anyway. You've got 4 guys there who I think are going to, take the lion's share of those snaps, just specifically at the edge rush. And in a perfect world, those 4 are all you need, but ultimately you would have liked Bralen Trice to stay healthy, obviously. I mean, you need to get this guy some snaps. You need to see what this guy can do. And I know it's frustrating for him. I know it's frustrating for Falcons fans. I know it's frustrating for that coaching staff too. It's just a guy he got banged up last year, first preseason game, and you missed the entire season, and I think it was kind of elevate. I mean, seeing him elevate and kind of play a little bit this summer was a good sight, but I mean, he's not going to get a whole lot of run just in general. But we'll see. There's a chance he has to have a procedure. We might see him by week 5. By that bye week, we may not see him at all this season. Raheem Morris kind of left a wide door open for that. Anything could be happening here with Bralen Trice. What it does do is it does open up a roster spot because he cleared the 53-man roster. He made the 53. You put him on IR, so it's a slightly different situation than what we saw with Kaleb McGary. Kaleb McGary was not added to the 53-man roster at all and put on IR. It means he misses the whole season. This is a little different. Like I mentioned, he could be back as soon as week 5. We'll see. I mean, there's just no telling. It's going to be something that just they're going to play by ear here over the next couple of weeks. But like I said, it did open up the roster spot. Jordan Fuller, the safety who was cut earlier in the week, he will rejoin the team, and he will be one of the 4 safeties that this team is going to have on its active roster. And I mean, he lost the battle with Xavier Watts. I think that's really the only thing you need to take from that sort of situation. But it was still very surprising that they cut him. I thought that he was going to be someone who they would retain, but clearly not. And Raheem Morris, I asked him about it today. He didn't really answer the question. He just said he was excited to have him back and left it at that. So I guess that's where I'll leave it right there. All right. We're going to take a quick break. I'm just going to take a sip of water. I'm not going anywhere, but while we wait, make sure to drop a like on the video, or if you're not subscribed, no reason you shouldn't be not subscribed. So make sure to drop in there, give it a like, give it a subscribe, and maybe share it with your friends. But give me 2 seconds and we'll be right back. And I'll be answering your questions right after I get back.
Blue sky.
Some people think nature is like this, but actually, it's like this. Mother Nature's not all sunshine and rainbows. Nature can be hotter than a sauna and colder than an Arctic skinny dip. That's why Columbia engineers everything we make for anything nature can throw at you. Columbia, engineered for whatever.
Hey there, travelers. Kaylee Cuoco here. Sorry to interrupt your music, great artist BT Dubs, but wouldn't you rather be there to hear it live? With Priceline, you can get out of your dreams and into your dream concert. They've got millions of travel deals to get you to that festival, gig, rave, sound bath, or sonic experience you've been dreaming of. Download the Priceline app today, and you can save up to 60% off hotels and up to 50% off flights. So don't just dream about that trip. Book it with Priceline.
Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Discover Ralph's Club New York, the new fragrance by Ralph Lauren. With blackcurrant, vanilla, and sandalwood, this scent embodies the sensuality and confidence of Usher. Like the city that never sleeps, this masculine fragrance lasts for 12 hours. Ralph's Club New York. Ralph Lauren. Shop now at Macy's.com.
The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox is on Hulu. In 2007, Amanda Knox was studying abroad in Italy. She had no idea her dream would turn into a nightmare. Inspired by the actual events of her wrongful conviction and 15-year fight for freedom, watch the new Hulu original series, The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox. Now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
All right. We are back, and I'm just going to jump in here right away to your questions. But welcome into everybody I see going across all of our platforms. We've got 50 or so people over there on YouTube. We got 50 more on Twitter. We got some more over there on Facebook. Thank you so much to everybody. I love talking Atlanta Falcons football with you guys. It's just an absolute blast, and I'm excited to jump into your questions and hear some things that you have to say. If you have comments, feel free to drop those in as well. I'm love hearing what you guys have to say. So we're going to start here. Philip Crawford, and this is going to be right where we start. So he's over there on YouTube, and Philip says, with our offensive tackle situation, what do you think the fall off would be, if any? It's significant. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I'm worried, very worried about the right tackle spot. And a lot of people hated on the right tackle position with Kaleb McGary. In my opinion, way too much. And I think there's an old adage, is like, you don't know a good thing till it's gone. And it's not that Kaleb McGary wasn't without fault. He was absolutely, he had his deficiencies on the football field. Wasn't a great in pass pro. I mean, he left a little bit to be desired there. Sometimes he would get beat and give up some sacks, blah, 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 blah. They also averaged 4.5 yards per carry on the right side. You know, you have a bona fide stud, a killer, a mentality setter on the right side of your line of scrimmage, who you have a tough guy like that and you add him to your team, or even more importantly, you subtract him from your team, your offensive line, your unit loses an edge. It loses something important. And that's going to suck. You know, just putting it bluntly, it's going to hurt, you know, and especially for a wide zone scheme like the Falcons are, they want to run outside of the tackles. Bijan Robinson, I want to say he led all of like the top end running backs, I guess you could say, people who were like a high volume carry guys. In terms of that, there wasn't even anybody even close to him. Nobody was close on runs outside of the tackles. It's what he does. It's his it's his bread and butter. And he's going to lose out on some of that. It doesn't matter who replaces him. It's going to be a step down regardless. And Elijah Wilkinson, I think, is the guy right now. In a perfect world, he's not the guy for long. I'm not trying to knock on the guy. It's just, there's a reason you go and add 5 extra bodies to this room, or really 4 additions, I guess you could say, 4 other guys. If you include a 5th, if you include Matthew Bergeron. But it's just kind of a worrisome spot. If you want to go back to listen earlier in the podcast, I did talk about it in a lot more detail. I talked about the specific guys and some of their strengths, weaknesses, etc. You can go check that out, Philip. But I appreciate the question. All right. Stephen B says, what will people who overhype Parsons say when Green Bay isn't great? I don't know what you mean by that. Overhyping Parsons. He's potentially the best pass rusher in the NFL. He might just be the best pure defender in the NFL. I really don't know who's overhyping Micah Parsons. I mean, what do you want him to do? You need him to be a lockdown cornerback too? I don't know what else you want him to do, Stephen B. I think it's him and White. Those are the only two guys who have ever had 4 straight seasons out of college of having double-digit sacks. He's well on his route to Canton, Ohio. He's a beast. Stephen B says Jake Matthews played right tackle. Yes, but he's also played left tackle for the last 12 years. You're not going to flip Jake Matthews. I just don't think that that's something that you're going to do. Maybe Matthew Bergeron. I think that's the only position of any that you would even consider making a move like that. And Jake Matthews is your starting left tackle. I think that's really what it all comes down to. That's my opinion. That's just my opinion. I think that why would you do something like that? I don't know. I don't think that that's going to be happening. But appreciate the comment, Steve. All right. So Happy Hudson comes in here. Says, seems like Darnell Mooney is closer to a return than we initially thought. He was practicing today. Happy. So I always kind of had the inclination that he was going to be starting week 1 based off of just reading the tea leaves, I guess you could say. He has no injury designation right now. He had no injury designation technically throughout the entire summer, even though he wasn't practicing. They don't have to give us any designations. They don't have to tell us anything. We ask, and sometimes they'll tell us. We ask, and other times they don't tell us anything. So for Darnell, we just knew it was a shoulder injury. We didn't know the extent of it. We don't know if there was a procedure. We didn't have a chance to ask about it today, just obviously with everything at the right tackle position that was kind of going on that kind of took precedence throughout the course of today. But that is going to be something we probably bring up next week, and I'll make a point to do that. Kiara says, hello. Hey, how are you? Austin says, I see 2-2 start, 10-7 finish. I think that's fantastic. I think ultimately, who's it? Ricky Bobby that said it doesn't matter how you start, it's how you finish. I don't think Ricky Bobby said that, but in my head, Ricky Bobby said that. So we'll just say Ricky Bobby said that. Someone else probably said that. I don't know. I know he said if you ain't first, you're last, and that's kind of the mentality of this team. That's what they've said. What's your goal for this year? And I think we asked a bunch of different people. They just said to win. So maybe that's where that's coming from. But 2-2 start, 10-7 finish. I don't care how this team starts. I just know that they're going to feel a lot of pressure regardless. And if you start 2-2, I think that gets you in pretty decent position because the schedule opens up a lot more down the line because you have your Indianapolis Colts. You've got your the Jets that you have later, the Dolphins, who I don't think are going to be all that great of a team when it's all said and done. You have the Saints twice, but I think that the schedule kind of lines itself up to a strong finish, and hopefully they can, take that as a ramp up period and get into the playoffs. So we'll see. But 10-7, I think would be enough to get you into the postseason. I think that would be wonderful. Zunny Moon Man, thank you. You reposted the stream. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Anybody who feels so inclined, I really appreciate all of the support from all of you guys. You guys have been wonderful. We got over 100 folks here joining on all of our platforms. And I know that I appreciate every single one of you, and all of your support is very well received, and I appreciate it. Austin says, I was thinking Jake at right tackle too. I just don't see them trying to do that. It's a guy who's well into his 30s. He's somebody who's played one position his entire career. He played right tackle, I believe, in college, I think was the last time. I don't think he played right. Maybe he did when he was a rookie. But that was also way back in the day. So I don't think that that's necessarily the best case scenario for him. Steven says, I'll email the coaching staff and tell them to move Matthews. Yes, go ahead. Good luck. Bucks raised bolts, my man here. He says, Packers going to the Super Bowl now. Is there got Jordan Love at quarterback? I don't know. I think ultimately that's a guy who threw 3 interceptions in the postseason and kind of doomed his team's chance of winning a lot of games. He dealt with a lot of injuries last year. I think he was at best average. I think Micah Parsons does elevate you a lot. I think he's going to do a lot of good things for your defense. which is already pretty good. I mean, they already had a pretty decent, like above average at best defense. I don't know where it ranked finished or anything like that, but I think any defense that goes and adds somebody like Micah Parsons is immediately going to be in a lot better shape. Let's see. Austin Fry says, I think Robinson will move Penix around in the pocket and roll him out. Yeah, no, he's going to roll out a little bit. He's going to do a lot more play action. But historically, Michael Penix isn't a guy who gets out and runs. You know, he's a little robotic in the pocket. He's got a good sack to pressure rate, which tells me he knows how to feel pressure effectively. But he's also only played 3 games, and his 3 games that he played were not exactly against world beaters on defense. It was the Giants, it was the Commanders, and it was the Carolina Panthers. So it remains to be seen. I mean, we'll see what he actually is at the professional level, is what I'm trying to say. I think he's going to be really good, but you need to see it. Proof is in the pudding, right? So you actually need to see it on the field before you make any definitive statements, I should say. But as far as rolling him out and moving him around, I think they will. I think the play action pass is going to be his friend. You weren't able to do a lot of that last year with Kirk Cousins just by virtue of him coming off of an Achilles injury, and he also wasn't really mobile to begin with. But the number one thing for this offense, and I think is a really important key here, just to keep in mind, is the fact that this team wants to throw the ball deep. They want to drop him back and launch that football. It's an element that Kirk didn't have, not to the level that Michael Penix has. And Michael Penix is really special when it comes to the deep ball. I would say, and I'm not alone in my opinion on this. I've seen it. I've heard it. I've read it. I've seen it a lot of different places nationally. But this is a guy who you could very legitimately say has the prettiest deep ball of anybody in the NFL. He throws it really well outside the numbers. He's a big throw rate of 9%. That would have led the NFL last year if that sample size kind of maintained. The next highest was, I think, Josh Allen at 7%. It's incredible. You know, this guy has an incredible capability, but the problem is you have to give him time. You have to give him a chance. And I think anything that Zach Robinson can do to find him some of that time, we'll see. Nick Minock on Facebook says Helms is the best. I love DeMarco Helms. You know, I mean, Xavier Watts, in case you missed it, he was named the Falcons week 1 starter at safety alongside of Jesse Bates. DeMarco Helms was another guy who made the cut on the roster. And I think he gives you something that I don't think any of these other guys give you. And it's that boom element. And they're going to use it at times. I don't know if it's always going to be used necessarily just in terms on like a every down type of basis. I don't know if they're going to use it all that much there, but if there's a situation where you need to get into a run stopping mode and you need somebody who's going to come in and, you know, lay a big hit on somebody, that's perfect for him. He's going to be a special teams contributor. He's going to be used a lot. And DeMarco Helms is going to get a lot of plays. He's not going to start. And I think that's going to be reserved for Xavier Watts here. But ultimately it's a good sign just because you haven't had a guy like that really since Keanu Neal. Willie Moe was like that a couple years ago. For anybody who remembers that one, they haven't really had a lot of a thumper over there on the back end. And I think DeMarco Helms can absolutely be that guy. Very excited about what he can do, especially speaking of people who are coming back from injuries from last year. He missed the entire season last year, you know, and he still has some development and things that he's got to do, but I think he's going to be a part of this defense and I'm excited to see what he can do. All right, let's keep on going. A lot of people talking over here about Micah Parsons. I get it. Micah Parsons is a big player. He says he's 26. Lavis says Micah is 26 and the best player in the league. Cowboys got fleeced. Yeah, no, they absolutely got fleeced. I have absolutely no idea how they just paid. They sent a player, Lenny Clark, I think it was his name, and then 2 first-round picks. Jeez, I'd have done that in a heartbeat. You know, I'd send probably just about anybody on the Falcons to go get Micah Parsons. Jalen Walker, James Pierce, I'd send them all. I think he is that good. It's just they didn't have any first-round picks to throw around. So maybe people don't like that take. If you don't like that take, tell me. But I would trade James Pierce, Jalen Walker, Arnold Ebiketie, Leonard Floyd, all of our pass rushers, Ruka Rororo, doesn't matter. Brandon Dorlus, any of them. To go get a player of the caliber of Micah Parsons, it's kind of an easy decision for me. Let's keep on rolling through. Laves says Mooney is so important for this offense to work. He's critical. I think you saw kind of the flashes of what he could be when he was up there in Washington, when he played for the team over there, when they played New York, the Giants. They were really good, and they were still really good without him. But I think ultimately, if you're going to play a full 17-game schedule, you need all of your weapons. You need the guys who you're going to be using on a weekly basis. And especially for a unit that, like I mentioned earlier, they're not super deep, and most teams aren't deep. But this is a unit especially that they're going to be counting on their top guys. You need Darnell Mooney, and he needs to continue to build some of that rapport over there with Michael Penix. Michael said he wasn't worried about it. Drake London mentioned today that they've all been getting some work in the offseason before training camp even started. So they have that rapport, but we'll see when it comes to week 1. Let's keep on going through. Happy Hudson says, you got your own hype man. Speaking of the dogs, I'm so excited for Walker. We really haven't seen him much, but I feel like he's a great fit for our defense. I think the best of Jalen Walker is not going to be felt by this defense for at least another year or two. I think he's going to be really good. They're asking him to do one thing and one thing only. It is rush the passer. They want him to just line up and be an edge rusher. And that's actually the one part of his game that I would say is, I guess, the weakest part of his game. And so he's going to spend the whole season kind of getting used to it and kind of working into that. And then Caden Ellis is in a contract year, so that's an important thing to keep in mind. And of the people who would fill that role, nobody better than Jalen Walker. I think he fits that role to a T. And if you talk about somebody who can kind of just drop in and, elevate and be that guy, that's Jalen Walker right there. So I think he's going to be an interesting part. Like you mentioned, Happy, we haven't seen him much this summer. He missed damn near half or more of the team's padded practices this summer, but you're going to see him on Sundays. And he was out there practicing today. I did see him out there. I think you're going to see him more as the season goes on. James Pierce is really the one that I'm super excited about there. Let's keep on rolling there. More lies behind that smile. I'm not going to say that. Let's keep on going through. Cody says Bralen Trice was a well-wasted pick. Way too soon to say that. It's the same thing as people. Troy Anderson has probably trended in that direction. But Bralen Trice, he got hurt, and it's just a damn shame that he goes and gets hurt. But he's not a wasted pick yet. He was also a player who was drafted to fit a Jimmy Lake defense, not a Jeff Ulbrich defense. And that's also one of those things that you have to keep in mind. JD Bertrand is another one of those guys. He was drafted to fit a Jimmy Lake defense, not a Jeff Ulbrich defense. It's one of the downsides of having several different defensive coordinators in as many years. You're going to have a lot of players who are kind of become an island of misfit toys. Bralen Trice is not at that level of wasted pick. Not yet, but he is trending in that direction, and he is dangerously close to being there. We'll see if and when he comes back this year. If he can, maintain a spot on this roster. He was a potential roster cut this summer. So we'll see what's there, but he is absolutely trending in that direction, unfortunately. Let's keep on rolling through. Steven says Trevon Diggs went from hyped cornerback to injury prone. Yeah, sure. I'm not here to talk about the Cowboys too much. I tend to agree, though. Trevon Diggs is not necessarily my favorite player. He got paid a lot of money. Cody Duchette, he says, should have grabbed Josh Jones at tackle or even someone better. That's an old vet. Still think we sneak in the playoffs, but now's the time to draft linemen the next couple of years. Yeah, I would say so. I think if you look at offensive tackle, that was probably going to be the position of need that they were going to be addressing here over the next couple of years. That offensive line just in general is going to be something that this team needs to address in the very near future. Your left tackle is aging quickly. Your right tackle is only under contract through 2027, I believe that's the number. We'll see what he's like when he actually comes back next year. We still don't actually fully know what the injury was. We just know it's a lower leg injury. It could be an ankle, it could be a knee, it could be anything. It could be a broken leg. Who knows? We really have no idea. We haven't actually had that designation yet. But yeah, no, offensive line is going to be a big position if need. But the thing is, of the guys who went through waivers, only a handful of offensive linemen were actually claimed. We don't know which guys they actually put a waiver request on we'll never know that information because they didn't win the waiver, so we'll never have that one fully put into stone, I guess. That they'll know, we won't. They're not going to tell us that information, but yeah, no, it's going to be a point of emphasis here over the next couple of years. It was already probably going to be a point of emphasis. I think you were trying to gear up for 2026 to really be your year. But now it better be your year. I mean, you're not very deep. But I do expect that they're going to start adding some fresh faces there next year. But that's an off-season question. That's something that we can deal with when we get into some off-season discussion points later on in the year. But let's keep on rolling through. He says, Moneyman says Helms is our Keanu Neal. Yeah, that's basically what he is. He wants to come in and lay the rubber. Willie Moe, always ready. Yes, you do remember that one. Merlin Norris says, who's going to start at right guard? Chris Lindstrom is your starting right guard. He is an all-pro level player. He's fine. I think you mean right tackle. Wilkinson is going to be your starting right tackle as of right now. We've talked about it a lot throughout the course of this podcast. Hit that rewind button. You can hear all about it. Specifically, if that's the one you're talking about, I'm assuming it is. We'll keep on going through. Philip says, I'll pass on Parsons. We got Walker, who is Parsons-like. Philip, I'll ask you this question, in all due respect. Would you rather have the guy who is the guy or the guy who is like the guy? I would rather have the guy, especially if that guy is only 26. That's your opinion. I'd rather have the guy. Let's keep on rolling through. Moneyman says, why do we keep Troy Anderson when he is always hurt? Well, yeah, I mean, he's still coming back from an injury. He's going to be back probably at some point he's on the PUP list, so he's going to miss the first 4 games of the season. Supposedly, he's going to be back week 5-ish, right around the bye week. But you keep Troy Anderson because you invested a second-round pick in him. You keep Troy Anderson because he is talented enough to warrant a spot on this roster. I actually think that this scheme fits him perfectly, ironically. I think he's actually going to come in here and be a pretty good fit. Now, Divine Diablo, I think, is going to take his position and run with it. And then he lines up next to Caden Ellis. But the thing is, the nice thing about it is when you get Troy Anderson back into this field, he's going to take over the spot from either J.D. Bertrand or Josh Woods. I would assume it's going to be Bertrand, but we'll see. But when you get Anderson back into the fold, it's going to open up the ability for this defense to kind of be more multiple, and you can do a lot more things. And maybe Caden Ellis can be more of a rover. And I think it ultimately elevates your entire team. Troy Anderson is that talented. In the game that he got hurt, he had it was a fumble return for a touchdown or interception return for a touchdown. He had a touchdown and he had 16 tackles. It was all over the field. And ironically, he gets hurt on special teams. He flashed that potential. He really flashed that potential in a big way. So it's just patience, and it's very frustrating, especially for somebody who struggled with injuries as much as he has. He has a place on this roster because he is talented. That's why. And ultimately, at the end of the day, talent wins the day. All right. Moneyman says someone reported it was a patellar injury, but I don't know how true that was. Talking about Kaleb McGary. I know who you're talking about. That's an uncorroborated story. I don't know that's true. Things that I have heard are sometimes different. Until the team tells us something, I'm not going to report it. Let's just put it that way. I'm not in the business of being first. I'm in the business of being right. That's really my number one thing. Philip comes back and says, I'd rather have my picks and money. Parsons cost too much money for us. But yes, I'd rather have Parsons too. Yes. And look, I wasn't coming at you when I said that, Philip. I appreciate your comment. And I do. Thank you for being a good sport about it. I was not coming at you. I promise. I was just saying, look, he's really good. He's really good. In fact, I wanted the Falcons to draft him in the first place. They didn't. They got Kyle Pitts instead. That's a different discussion. We're not going to get into that one right here. But no, I think he's making a lot of money. What is it, $47 million a year or something? I get it. I really appreciate the your thought on that one. Happy says, seems like you don't like Walker. I'd rather have him at cost than Park. I'm a UGA fan, though. Have you seen his college tape? He definitely passes the eye test. I love Jalen Walker. Don't get me wrong. I'm talking about potential versus realized potential happy. That's the only difference. It's not about who I like or don't like. I think Jalen Walker is a slam dunk. I celebrated that pick when it happened. I had the live reaction show on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game, and I spent an hour talking about how excited I was and still am about Jalen Walker. He's going to be a beast. The only difference is realized potential of somebody who is destined for Canton, Ohio versus somebody who we think can be really good, right? That's the only difference. That is it. That's really it. And Micah Parsons was never coming to Atlanta. The only time you're ever going to get a Micah Parsons is if you drafted him. You don't have the cap space. There are other issues that are standing in the way. But ultimately, I am very excited about Jalen Walker. I think Jalen Walker can be a beast for this unit. I'll do an entire show on why I think Jalen Walker can be that guy for this team. I'm really excited about him. So do not take this the wrong way. It's just, would you rather have Michael Penix or Patrick Mahomes? Like, it's one of those types of conversations, like Joe Burrow or something like that. Would you rather have somebody who's really, really good and he's really, really good and he's playing at the highest level, or would you rather have somebody who could get to that level? That's it. We'll keep on going through here. Happy, I know. Yes, you meant Parsons. I meant that. I do know what you meant. Stephen B says Pitts is 2 years younger, so there's that. Yeah, but Pitts hasn't really done a whole lot of anything. Pitts is probably not going to be an Atlanta Falcon next year. The other one is going to make $47 million. Yeah, and Happy, yes. I see you. You said he's over the moon about Jalen Walker, so I hear you. I'm over the moon about him too. So I'm really excited about it. And look, ultimately, I think that talking about people on other teams, whatever, it's a moot point. They're not Falcons. I don't care about them. They're not on my team. My team is the team I want to talk about. And ultimately, this team has some issues. This team has some shortcomings. They have some things that they're going to have to climb. And that's just the NFL, and everybody's going to get kind of these bad hands every now and then where you're going to have injuries at spots where you don't want to have injuries. It's just life in the NFL. But ultimately, this is a Falcons team who I think can still win the NFC South. Your biggest competition is on their third offensive coordinator in 3 years. They're asking Levante David to be Superman again at the second level. They're looking at I'm blanking on his name. Shoot, the edge rusher who they brought in from Hassan Haskins. Not Hassan Haskins. I don't remember his name. I'm blanking on it right now. I got every other thing that's going on in my brain. But you have a Tampa team that's asking to do a whole bunch of things. And they're trying to do a bunch of different things. And they're trying to win the NFC South for the fourth year in a row. They're a really good team. They're going to be a tough competition for this Falcons team. And look, this Falcons team beat them twice last year. We'll see if they can actually pull it all together. Hassan Reddick. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Money Man. Hassan Reddick. That's who I was thinking of. Hassan Haskins, I think, plays running back, played for the Michigan Wolverines. But this is the team who I think can absolutely win the NFC South. The problem is they just need to go do it. They need to figure it all out. And this team still has a long way to go. They haven't been in the playoffs in 7 years, and that's not a short amount of time. That's basically my entire professional career. I'm 30. And I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, you have to actually see them take that next step and grow up. But we'll see how it happens. Look, next week is a big week because it's week 1. And we'll talk all about week 1. And we'll spend another hour here with all the wonderful Falcons fans here. And just a reminder, just for everybody who's new here, remember, Scott and Nick, they're going live at 8:30 on Monday and Wednesday. So they'll be back up here on Monday morning. And if there's content that you want to see on this channel, drop a comment and let me know. We'll be back on Tuesday at 6 p.m. And that means football is back. Week 1 action. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're going to talk about all of our expectations for the team. We're going to start previewing that game next week, and we'll talk more Falcons news and drama and all the other stuff that we got going on. So make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date. Give me a follow at GChapATL on Twitter. Check out all the content that we have coming out there, or you can just head over to si.com/NFL/Falcons and get your fix there too. My name is Garrett Chapman for Falcons on SI, and I'll see you all very soon. Till next time, go Falcons.